Welcome to Pixel Realms, the podcast where two geeks dive headfirst into the gaming multiverse. They're basically like Gandalf in a headset, minus the wisdom and magic. So, grab your snacks and level up your patience. Pixel Realms, where the pixels are real, but the knowledge, not so much.
Welcome to Pixel Realms Episode 3, The Future of Console Gaming. I am Mark.
I'm Joe.
And first of all, I guess let's start with the news. Joe, what is this about Ubisoft being sued?
Well, all these major game companies get sued probably every year, multiple times. But in this case, this one is something I'm really proud of because two people in California have sued Ubisoft because they pulled The Crew off its servers. So in 2023, Ubisoft delisted the racing game, The Crew. And in April 2024, they completely shut off the servers. And the reason that the lawsuit is actually even a thing is because the consumers are saying that Ubisoft didn't quite tell them they were renting or that it was a limited game. And this is something that's been going on, or in the background, going on for a while when it comes to always on live service games. Is once the server gets shut down, it's it. We're done. You can never play that game again. Compared to games like, think about Super Mario Brothers, way back in the day. Here we are, whatever it's been, 40 years later, and you can still boot up a Nintendo and have yourself a good time in Mario. What do you think, Mark?
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting thought because, games have been doing this for many, many years. This is the first time, I guess, that it's become like a thing. I guess I can't really think of a game off the top of my head. The only one that I can vaguely sort of remember doing something like this, but it wasn't a multiplayer game. I remember for the longest time, you couldn't get the Deadpool game anymore. Like a license had slipped or something, and they pulled Deadpool. But I think you can get it again, maybe. And some other games do that. I know Transformers just did this recently, where some of their Transformers games were completely pulled. I believe Transformers Devastation, you can't even buy it right now because of some of these similar things where like a license expired, so they can't sell it. But I think I still have it on my Steam library, though, so I think they don't take that away from you. It's just that you can't buy it again.
Yeah, if you have it downloaded, a lot of times you still have access to it, but even sometimes in your library, they get removed from your library.
Yeah. So this is, I guess, the first time where I've really, maybe because a lawsuit has come of it, like, that I've thought about it. Because there's the whole controversy that started recently with Steam, too, about how technically you don't own any of your games on Steam, that you're, quote-unquote, renting the license or renting them, too. So
yeah, I think that started in Washington. I think as a state of Washington, or not Washington, California, that they came up with the rule that if you want to sell the games in California, then you have to make sure that it says that it's being rented only.
Is it because of this lawsuit, though?
No, not this Ubi one. The Steam.
Well, what I'm saying is, did that come about because of this lawsuit? I'm assuming no.
Oh, no, that's been in development for a while now.
Interesting, because because this could be precedence, because I don't know about you. I don't want to even mention how many Steam games I own, but I have a lot of games on Steam. So the fact of all the years and all the money I've put into buying, games on Steam, to suddenly be told I don't really own them is it's interesting.
So who was it? Was it Microsoft or was it Sony? Was it last year or the year before? They were delisting movies that people had bought through their store, and it became a big. I think it was Sony. It was like, I don't know, History Channel or something. They lost the license. They didn't want to renew it because it cost too much money. So they told everyone, we're removing access to these things you bought with your money. And it became such a big deal that the consumers fought back. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it was Sony. And Sony said, okay, fine, we'll pay the license so you can have them still.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I guess the problem, in my opinion, would be not that. Okay, so you're essentially renting them, but since they've never been stated that way, like especially with Steam games, for example, if I buy a $50 Steam game, I expect to be able to access that game and forever.
Yeah.
If that's not going to be the case, then either needs to be stated otherwise, or when these licenses expire, then we should be compensated for the loss of that game. If I spent $50 on the game and then they take it away from me, then I should be credited
Mm-hmm.
on my account for at least some kind of monetary um,
And
refund, whether it be based on how many hours I played, or still how new it is, or that
yeah.
would be a whole different can of worms, I guess. But still,
And that's the question that's always been in the air is how much is a game worth?
yeah, that's
You know.
true. I mean, because you're buying. I've never understood why digital games, the last several years especially, are being charged the same price as the physical copy. Because for a long time,
Yeah.
you used to get it at an off price. Like
Yep.
if I bought a game digitally, it was usually at least $10 cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all the same price, and it's like that. I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting a physical copy. So why am I paying the same price as someone who's getting a physical
Yeah.
copy?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's, I think, like you said, I think this is where the lawsuit's going to really potentially change the entire landscape of how these live services are going to work in the future. Maybe they'll have to hide it in the TOS where they say it's only limited license and you only have access to it for however long they decide. But
Mm.
it's probably not going to benefit the consumer by any means.
Oh, I mean, it's never going to in this particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you expect to see? Is that what we expect to see from the outcome of this? Is just being like, okay, from now on, we have to state it somewhere that, oh, technically you don't own this game. You're just paying for
Yeah.
an extended like rental.
Yeah, it's going to be in the TOS. It's going to be something that's maybe instead of buy, it's going to say lease or rent or borrow, or the term is going to be changed a bit, or maybe they'll. Here's the thing, maybe because they have lawyers that have that they're willing to spend a lot of money. Uh, Maybe they'll change what the word buy means.
Oh yeah, that or something. I guess the last question on this, or at least from me, would be: do you see? I'm going to assume no, but do you think that this could maybe lead to a change in pricing for games? Like, oh, since we're paying for a rental,
No,
maybe yeah.
no.
I figured that was going to be
The
the
games are
case.
going
Like,
up in price as it is. They went
yeah.
from the standard 60 now. A lot of them are 70. And that was a trend that was sent by consoles that are now being shifted over to PC as well, even though PC development is supposed to be easier.
Technically, every game that's created starts as a PC game, anyways, isn't it? Usually,
It is the
isn't it?
case. Yes, it is the
You
case.
know.
So
So
I've no, I never understood any of that. But this is life. How about we rant a little bit? I guess it's not really a rant. It's gonna be a fresh take on open world or narrative when it comes to story games.
oh, phew. Well, I guess it would depend on the narrative, because generally I usually go for open world gaming because I like having options. I like being able to be like, I see that direction that way. I want to go that direction, and I want to go until I decide not to go anymore.
hmm
I don't like hitting an invisible wall.
I I don't know. It like God of War is narrative, Uncharted is narrative, and but then I play games like Ghost Recon, at least the newer generations of Ghost Recon, which are open world, Assassin's Creed, which is open world. Recently, we've been playing Dragon Age, the new Dragon Age game, and that is kind of like a mixture. It's not as open as the other games. But
Hmm.
then I look at like Dragon Age, the first Dragon Age, which was definitely wide open, comparing it to Dragon Age 2, which was more linear, and then 3, which became more open, but still in linear in a way. Then you go back to the Diablo series. So I think I'm with you on that. It's based on the story itself. If the story can be told in a path that's nice and smooth for a narrative approach, I think it's great. But having the freedom to explore the beautiful world that's been created is also a huge plus.
Yeah, I think back to a lot of the games that we had been playing, like Enshrouded, where
Hmm.
you could go, for the most part, we could go anywhere on the map. We would just run into difficulties with our level or, certain unlocks that maybe we hadn't done yet. But we didn't hit too many quote unquote invisible walls as much as it was just like, oh, this is a mountain and we can't exactly climb this part of the mountain type thing.
Hmm.
I think back to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, I thought did it
Oh yeah.
really good. There were so many times that I played that game. I logged in that game. I probably put 30, 40 hours into Breath of the Wild, never even got close to beating it because that wasn't the game for me. The game was this game's incredibly well done. It's a beautiful world. I logged in today and I feel like going west and seeing what I can get into on the west side of the map. And then that's what I would do is I would take Link in that direction. And usually what would happen 9 times out of 10 is I would be going west and then I would see something that'd be like, oh, what's that? And then I'd veer off the course and go explore that. And I would do that for hours until finally I'm like, well, I'm done for today.
Do you
And
think
then
do you think that
that was it.
we as gamers have entered the world of open world fatigue?
It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. I think it depends. There's so many new open world survival games that they're all basically carbon copy of each other.
Hmm.
That most of them don't do anything new. So it's just a matter of how's the build mechanics, how limited are we before we say, okay, this is enough of this game. We can't do this or that. Time to move on to the next game. And Shrouded was a good example of gameplay not fitting the building. There were so many things that we couldn't do that we wanted to do because the gameplay was kind of locking us. And that was just one game that I'm using as an example. I think a lot of the times, a lot of the open world games that started to give me fatigue were the games like Witcher 3, where every game for a while there had to have like a Witcher sense,
Yeah.
like a special like sensory type ability, and it was like, okay, this game has this. Oh, let's see. Oh, this is this game's Witcher sense. Oh, this is this game's Witcher sense. So, but I think open world is starting to get a little bit like that, where I think it's starting to get to the point where it's better to just tell a cohesive story and give you enough filler in between the story to stay on a certain path, but still lead towards the into maybe just letting us branch off, because that's how you get tired of the game quicker too. I think too many non-objectives.
Yeah.
I think that's more what it is. It's that it's not even so much as the open world game is what's making us fatigued. It's not having a structured goal in mind. Because like most of the open world games will teach you, like they'll give you the quests to build this and to go here and to do this, but then after I'd say an hour of a semi tutorial, it's like, okay, the world is your sandbox, have fun. And
Mhm.
you do that for a while and then you get kind of tired, and then if there's no real end game goal that you care about, then it's just kind of like, okay,
And
I'm good.
that's where the narrative comes in. Where's the story? Is the story
Hmm.
worthwhile playing? Because yeah, I can go
Yes.
loot all this crap, go explore this little world, but I'm not invested enough into it.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely where it is you have to find a fine line. You could have open world in your game, but you have to have something that is going to push you towards a goal, or you will burn out, because after, I don't know, 10 hours of collecting resources to be able to build the house of your dreams, once the house of your dreams is built, it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
I'm done building the house.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
And speaking of what to do now, the future of console gaming. Where does the world of console gaming build going forward?
Well, that's a good question because for example, I don't play console anymore. I haven't been a console gamer in at least 15 years. I would buy new consoles. For the longest time, I would own, the newest PlayStation, the newest Nintendo,
Hmm.
but a lot of the times they just collect dust. The PlayStation specifically, especially once they got started putting their games on PC, within 6 months to a year, I'd started to basically be like, I don't need to play you on console anymore because I'd rather play you on PC anyways.
Yeah.
Horizon was a really good example of that. I remember playing the initial release of Horizon Zero Dawn on, I think it was PS4. I don't think it was a PS3 release. I think it was PS4. And I remember playing it, and I thought it was a great game, but I was like, this is a PC game for me. Um, I couldn't finish it because a lot of the times, like third person or first person shooter type games, I do not use controllers for them. They have to be mouse and keyboard. That's
First
just how it
person,
is.
first person shooters, mouse and keyboard for me, but third person, I prefer a controller.
I I don't. I guess over the years I just got so used to using mouse and keyboard for everything
Hmm.
that controller is very, very, very hard for me to feel comfortable using. With exception, I won't play a fighting game on a mouse and keyboard. I don't play fighting games, period. But if I am going to play a fighting game, I would rather use a controller or a pad or whatever you call them, a fight stick. But
Oh yeah.
and I could say the same about uh, your more beat 'em up style games, like your Yakuza
Hmm.
style games. I'd rather use a controller for. But yeah, I mean, I'm usually a mouse and keyboard guy, so that's that was right there. That's a big thing towards getting rid of console gaming for me. Was I can't play it on mouse and keyboard. I'm not going to play it. But in hindsight, the only problem with some of these games, Horizon, I'm using Horizon again because it's a good example. It took Horizon so long to get to PC that by the time it finally came out on PC, I didn't care enough to go back and play it. So I missed out on an overall great game that I may still eventually go back to and play because it's not going anywhere. It's just that when it came out, it was relevant and it seemed cool and I wanted to play it, but it felt like a mouse and keyboard game for me. And then it didn't come out on PC for several years. And by the time it came out, I was too deep into other things to where I just didn't care. So there's also that kind of thing where
I commend
the
Sony for bringing their games to the PC. The
mhm,
problem is people are not gonna buy a PlayStation 5 for Uncharted, for Horizon, for Spider-Man. They will wait it out if it's gonna come to PC or another console,
yeah,
or they just won't play it at all.
and that's the big thing. That's the thing. I waited for a long time to buy a PS5 because there were no games on the system. I literally bought a PS5 to play Final Fantasy VII Remake because at the time it hadn't been naturally assumed that would come to PC anytime soon. So there wasn't like you knew it would come to PC probably eventually. So yes, I could have waited and eventually got it, which in hindsight, I think it came out only like a year later and complete with the DLC that I never played because I think the DLC didn't come out until it was a PS5 thing. I don't think it came out on PS4. The I forgot what it was called. Interlude, I think, is what the DLC was called. And so in hindsight, that's why I bought the PS5. That and I was using my PS4 as a streaming device for a long time, and then my PS4 broke. So I bought a PS5 to essentially just be a streaming device. And now, yeah, that's the terrible part about that. You're paying $300-400 now. At launch $500-600, and for me, it was just a streaming device.
I remember a coworker and I, we were really interested in, shoot, what game was it? I think it was, well, I think he was interested in a couple of PlayStation 5 titles, and I was interested in a couple of them as well, but not willing to spend the money on a console. So he's like, "Hey, let's go half on a console." And he was serious. I was like, I don't know. And he ended up buying one eventually himself, and then he let me borrow it. But I borrowed the PS5, and I played PlayStation 4 games on it. I
Yeah.
played old games from my library that were still in my game library
Mhm.
from the PlayStation 4. I did try out three titles that were PS5 games. God of War Ragnarok. I tried the trial
Mhm.
on that. I tried the new NBA game just to see how the next gen stuff was, and then Gran Turismo as well. But I was sitting there as I was using this PlayStation 5, all I thought about was, I'm glad I didn't buy it. I am so glad I did not buy this console.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I am trying to think. I think I've played one PS5 game on my PS5 because when I had my PS5, I was playing PS4 games,
Hmm.
and I wasn't even paying for the upgrade because you could pay
Yeah,
an
yeah,
extra. I think it was a $20 or something to upgrade to the PS5 version of said game, and I
yep.
wasn't about that shit. I think
No.
I played Final Fantasy 16 was the only game I played on PS5 that was a PS5 only at the time title. And was it amazing looking? Absolutely. Do now that it's on PC, I think only after what 6 months, maybe a year tops. I don't even think it was a year. I think it was less than a year that Final Fantasy 16 became available on PC. Like I haven't played it. I haven't touched it on PC yet, and I don't think I will for a while because, uh, quite honestly, Final Fantasy 16 is an incredible looking game. They changed a lot of elements from the other Final Fantasy titles that it didn't draw me in as much, but that's a topic of another day. But yeah,
Hmm.
it looked amazing, but it didn't look any more amazing than if I maxed out my graphics on my computer and played it on my PC. Like, that's just the truth of it. It looked like a beautiful looking computer game because that's what the PlayStation 5 is, a console computer. It is a computer that is in a console shell. That's all. It's not a fucking its own thing. It's just a goddamn PC.
I feel that there was a shift in the early 2000s. I know when I first got into PC gaming, I was only PC games. I didn't have a console. And then I ended up getting the GameCube to play Animal Crossing. But then that kind of started me on a trend towards console gaming. And at the same time, PC game, not exclusives, but games coming to PC were less and less. There seemed to be this shift
Mm-hmm.
in the world where games were just going towards console and no longer coming to PC.
Yeah, that is true.
And then Steam came aboard
Yep.
and changed the entire outlook. And here we are in 2024, and others are trying to replicate what Steam did. Like Epic, they thought, oh, sure, if I give developers a whole crap load of money, they'll bring all their games over to us. Epic hasn't learned yet that there's only one titan in this, and that is Steam. And it's not because they're greedy bastards either. Steam, they do a really good job at catering to us as gamers and not
Mm-hmm.
thinking of us as consumers.
No, that's true. Um,
Think about all the things they've added. Think about how easy it is to do a refund on Steam. They recently
yep.
added the in-game recording feature. They have the family share library feature. All these things are
Re, re,
for us as the gamer, and not it's not about the money. It's about how we value our games and how we value our library.
Yeah, I mean, the refunding. I know a buddy of mine who was gifted a game and was able to refund it.
Oh wow.
And I also know someone who had already owned the game like 2 months and was still able to refund it. even though there's like a limit to how long you could own the game
Yeah,
before you're not supposed to be able
I think
to. So
it's 2
sometimes,
weeks or something.
yeah, so sometimes they'll even give you the refund that way. I mean, not all the time, but so yeah, the ease of use is a big thing. Look at Microsoft now. Look at Xbox
Mhm.
Game Pass and their cloud gaming system. I'd say arguably after Steam is probably the most successful.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
You know, PlayStation tried to copy them, and eh.
Well, the thing is, does okay, and then this is going to be very up in the air, I think, depending on the gamer, because there are great titles on both sides. But I feel PlayStation, Sony has better stories and better characters than on Xbox. The problem is not everyone wants to own a PlayStation because if you have the Xbox Game Pass, you can play it on your Xbox and on your PC.
Yeah, I mean that's always been sort of the case. I mean, you look at Xbox, and I think the only character that you could really credit with Microsoft with is Master Chief, right? Even though that was not Microsoft, that was Bungie.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, you could only get Halo on Xbox
Yeah.
until they started doing PC and the Game Pass and whatnot. Whereas PlayStation has, they created, for their system, it was, Kratos and Jack and Daxter and
hmm
a bunch of those. Like I can't, like, if I sat there and thought about it, I could name more, but off the top of my head, I
It's
can't
tough,
name a whole
yeah.
bunch.
But then you
But
think about like, okay, so you got Halo, okay, yeah, sure. You got Gears of War, yeah.
mhm.
Fable, I think, is or was, I don't know if it is still, but Fable was a place Xbox exclusive at one point.
I
So
think so. But
yeah,
Fable, you didn't have a character. You had a faceless character. You're
that's
like
fair.
it
That's
was
fair.
Skyrim. It was just a Skyrim game,
Yeah,
but with someone with a different creator.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, PlayStation had Kratos, had Jack and Daxter, had Nathan Drake.
hmm
Just to name a couple. I mean, even little, what is it? What do they call him? Is he's like Sock Boy or whatever for
Oh yeah, the Sackboy.
yeah, like even he's like a cute little iconic little character. Is he like a major character? No. But when you see the cute little face, you're like, oh, that's PlayStation. That's even if you can't name the title, you know that it's on PlayStation.
If Sony was smart, and I understand they don't want to potentially steal from their own console, but if they were smart, they would take their titles and cloud all of them so that PC gamers can use them
Well, they
through
had.
PlayStation
I thought they
Plus.
did that. Didn't
Not
they
all
have the?
not all titles. It's only very few,
Okay.
very small selection.
Because I remember using their quote unquote streaming type service for a very short time
Yeah,
because I was playing, what was it? I think it was originally Persona 5, as a matter of fact.
yeah.
I
But what
I didn't have a console at the time, and I was playing it through their streaming service.
and I'm talking about like day one stuff, like Xbox has with the day one
Yes.
Game Pass. If the new, let's say, whatever Uncharted 7 comes out, have that available day one on PlayStation Plus for PC gamers to use your service and play the game on the PC via the cloud service.
I agree, but I think that would be when, if they did that, I think that would be Sony admitting that they no longer care about pushing consoles. And I'd have to do proper research so that I'm not just shooting out of my ass, but I believe their gaming division is the only thing that's still really profitable for them. I
They do.
remember,
They did sell out a lot of stuff.
yeah, I think their movie department has been bombing. I think a lot of their other fields have been doing relatively poorly.
Yeah.
So
Well, they
they
jumped onto
probably,
everything though when they got hot.
yeah,
They went into
that's true.
everything, and that was a mistake. You never expand that fast.
That's true. That's true. I just think that that's probably why they can't do that, because then they would admit that pushing the PlayStation console doesn't matter anymore, because you could still go out and buy a Microsoft console. You can buy an Xbox, but I don't know anybody who owns one. And I'm sure there's millions of people who own one.
But
I don't know anyone in my circle that owns one. Because why do they need one?
I feel that there's ways they can do it. Like, I just think about like if can't think of a new title that they're just released, but
Exactly.
imagine if that was more open to available on PC, on Xbox, on PlayStation. How many more copies of that game could potentially sell? And then think
But
about
again,
this, like, think about people who would buy a PlayStation controller for their PC, so they make money that way as well.
yeah, because the peripherals, accessories are probably what makes them profit now instead of consoles. But that's still an expensive console that they're putting money into. That they would essentially PlayStation, kind of like Xbox, would have to come out and admit to being like, well, we would like you to buy our PlayStation, but you could still play our games somewhere else, so you really don't have to.
They
But
just
hey, maybe buy our controller.
they just released a new PlayStation 5 Pro, which they did with the 4. They released a Pro version of that.
And what's
But
the point?
well,
What's the point of it?
so I feel like the PS4 Pro was actually worth it because it went from 30 FPS to 60 FPS. That's a pretty substantial change for some of the titles out there. And
But
they
why not
kind
play it
of
on the PC at 60 FPS?
true, but there are some titles you couldn't at the time. This was,
Okay,
back then.
fair.
Now, the PS5 Pro is more powerful, yeah. Can run things at higher definition and get the 60 FPS now, yes. But as your point, now you can play a lot of the titles on the PC.
Yeah, there's no
So
point to it.
the 4 was
That's what it is.
fine. The 5, that was, I think, a stupid mistake. And it's
Yeah,
like $700 or something.
yeah, and the sad thing is that you are going to have suckers who are going to buy that because they're, Timmy's 70-year-old grandma isn't going to know any better. But the majority of media, the majority of people who buy the systems and buy the games nowadays kind of know better. So outside of 70-year-old grandma and 10-year-old Timmy, most people know that there's no point behind it. So I don't know. I guess I'm just in the point where it just doesn't make sense. If you were paying for an exclusive thing, whether it be high definition or that or this or that, then I could understand. But now high definition is everywhere. 4K, 8K, a million K, a billion K, resolution is everywhere now. So there's no item that is holding you to the console
Remember,
other than limited release windows.
you remember when the rumor came out a couple of years ago about a Switch Pro version? And again, it was all rumors, and the internet went crazy. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a faster processor. It's gonna be a better screen. It's gonna have better speakers. Here we
It ended up
are.
being OLED.
Yeah,
It ended up being the OLED, and it wasn't that much better, but people still bought it.
people still bought it.
People still bought it for that bigger screen.
Mm-hmm.
I think really what the other thing that's really the reason why you bought a console back in the day, in my opinion, was transportability.
Yeah.
You didn't really game on a PC, a laptop, should I say? Back in the day, gaming laptops were super expensive compared to a desktop.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be taking your desktop everywhere for a LAN. There were LAN parties, but those became past tense too, because you didn't want to haul around your big tower everywhere. So at least with console gaming, the consoles were relatively small. You could pack them up in a suitcase or in a box and take them to your best friend's house for the weekend and do that. But now with mobile gaming, with the Steam Deck and other versions like the Steam Deck coming out, even just console gaming, the transportability of that is dead.
Yeah.
So you're really at a point now where there's no sense in buying a console except for an exclusive title that is probably going to end up somewhere else anyways in 6 months to a year. You're just paying because you want to play it right now. You want to play it right now, not 6 months from now. And I
Now,
understand that,
yeah,
but that's still the point in saying that the average person who is okay with waiting can wait 6 months or a year and play said game somewhere else.
there are still a lot of people though that they have their entire community in on a console. You know, all their friends are on Xbox, so they all play
Mm-hmm.
together still. All their friends are on the PlayStation, so they all play together on the PlayStation. Uh,
And
and
that's fair.
and there's some games that allow cross-platform play. Far in between, I wish more games would do it, but there are a handful that still do.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I mean,
there's also the idea that, at least with the PlayStation 4 and on the previous Xbox, was it S or something? That those consoles were relatively inexpensive, comparing it
yes.
also to the price of like an entry-level PC.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at the cost of a PlayStation 5, the new Xbox, the cost
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes more, like $700 for I think it's a Pro, like the PlayStation Pro, 5 Pro. That's more than an entry level, and I'm talking bare bone, but an entry level PC game, console.
Yeah, I would say you're probably pretty close to being right, if not right, because whenever I would tell someone who wants to get into PC gaming and they don't have a PC and they're like, "Hey, Mark, can you build me a computer?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I can, but it depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to be gaming on it, be prepared to spend $800 to $1,000 for bare minimum. Now, if you want, balls to the wall, high def, super ultra mega everything, I don't usually say less than 1,000, less than $1,400 because of the graphic card and whatnot. But yes, entry level, you could probably play some games on a very low resolution for around, I don't know, $600 to $800, where a brand new console that comes out first day, almost in the last, I don't know what, since at least PS3, they were $600.
Hmm.
So yeah, $600 now can get you a low res computer. Sometimes you catch a really good deal on a desktop computer at, say, like Best Buy, and you can catch like a $750 to $800 computer that can play stuff on slightly higher resolution, but you can still play it
My
instead of
my wife got her
dropping that money.
PC
Mm-hmm.
as an Alienware. She bought hers on sale Black Friday from Dell at a hell of a price. It was like 60% off or something like that, and it was a great bare bones system. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
had spare parts where I was able to pop in there and make it even better, so it made the purchase even more better than initially. But
And that's the thing.
for like $500, it was a
Yeah.
great starter system for sure.
And that's the
And
thing. You just said that you just put the nail on the head right there. You can upgrade a computer. You could buy that bare bones low res computer, say for $500-$600, and when you have the money, you can upgrade that fucker and make it a max system. Yes, you have to put that money in, but you're not paying it all at once, all in one go. With the console, you could switch out hard drives. I believe they've made it easier to do hard drives now, but you're not going to be upgrading graphic cards. You're not going to crack open your fucking console
when they
and
stopped
swap out
making
parts.
games for that console could only play games of the past.
Yeah,
They won't stop making games for the PC that could only be played on an HP.
right. Exactly. So right there, you're already selling another reason why console gaming has really outlived its purpose, with the exception of Nintendo. Nintendo is the only company, console, whatever, that still does their original IPs and they don't sell out. and they are on Nintendo systems only.
Nintendo
They are the
is the
only
most
one.
stubborn company for a good reason
Yeah,
because their IPs are,
longevity.
yeah, their IPs are extraordinary. They're amazing, lovable
Mhm.
characters that anyone would love and die to play some Mario game on the PC. Now, you can with
Look at
emulators.
Pokemon. Look
Pokemon,
at
yeah.
Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the controversy behind games like Power World,
Yeah.
who because people were dying, thirsting for Pokemon on the PC. So people had to go out and make their own. And some of these games are decent. I quite enjoyed Power World, but it's not Pokemon. I want to play Pokemon on the PC, open world, catching them all, doing going to the different gyms and training my Pokemon. That's what I want to do. I'm never going to get to do it. And that's both, it sucks as a fan and as a gamer, but is incredibly intelligent of Nintendo because stubbornly they won't sell out. But because of that, when the next Switch drops, I'm gonna buy it.
Well, the other thing
Even though I don't
is,
play console games often, there does come a point where at times where I really want to play a Zelda game. I really want to play a Pokemon game. So I'm gonna load up that console.
the thing is that Nintendo also, when they release consoles, they don't go for like the biggest and best processor and graphic units out there. They get something that's well enough, that's efficient, and have the developers optimize their games for that console. And of course, Nintendo's own first party stuff makes sure it's perfectly optimized to run at the best it possibly can on that
Yep.
hardware.
And affordability.
What was the Switch like?
Brand new.
$300 when it came out?
I think it was 250. It
250?
might have been
Yeah.
three. It
That's
might have
a
been three.
you could
But it
buy
was
3 Switches for the price of one PlayStation 5 Pro.
Yep. I guarantee you when the next Switch comes out, if it breaks 400, I'll be surprised.
Oh, it's not going to. No.
I
350
don't
maybe.
maybe 300, maybe 350.
Although it depends on what happens with the, import taxes down the road, but
Yeah, but at the same time you get the point. Like they've always kept it affordable because they know people want to buy their games and want to buy their accessories and want to play them and whatnot, but they need to be able to afford it.
mhm.
If you're shelling out essentially a month's worth of rent or a car payment worth to buy just the console and you haven't bought the accessories of the games, you got a paperweight. You got an expensive ass paperweight.
Yep. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, Nintendo has always been smart about it because Nintendo games have never been about the graphics. Yes, the graphics are great and they push the envelope to how far their games can go graphically. But yes, there are limitations. But usually, when you're playing a Nintendo title, with the rare exceptions, like the recent Pokemon titles, Scarlet and Violet, there were a lot of graphical glitches and problems. But that also might have been more because Nintendo and Game Freak were being pressured to put out a new title within a certain time frame, more
Yeah.
than it was just anything else. Because look at the Zelda games. The
Oh,
Zelda
man.
games
Gorgeous.
are gorgeous games and they never feel rushed. Sometimes it feels like it takes too long to get out, but then when it comes out,
Wow.
you're like, oh, what was I bitching about?
hmm
This game's incredible.
The other thing to think about is you don't need to have a high-end PC because you can use Xbox cloud gaming, you can use GeForce Now, you can Amazon's Luna.
Mhm.
Google had a cloud service that came and fell pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even need a PC. You could do it
Yeah.
through TVs, like it has it built into it, that
I would,
ability, or a USB thing you plop in and it's good to go.
yeah, I
So
would say that's the only market Nintendo's missing out on
yeah,
is because their online services are pretty atrocious. I will admit that. Like,
but it's cheap. It's
and
like $20 a year or something.
$20 for one person. Now, I unfortunately having a family, I pay $75, but it's $75 for the entire year, and it's for the entire family. Whereas if you're doing Microsoft or PlayStation, I believe you're still paying at least 50, if not 60. I think it's at least 60 now So I'm paying $15 more, yes, but they also give you access to Nintendo, their online services, their Nintendo games, their Super Nintendo, GameCube, N64. Now there's Sega Genesis games, I think it's 3DO. There's a ton of old properties that there's a lot of nostalgia there for that I would say would warrant, maybe that extra $15. So you're at least getting something out of it. It's just the fact of that's something I still feel like they're missing out on. Like being able to play a Mario game at my computer, for example, without having the console would be kind of cool, and they wouldn't be selling out their IPs because you can't get Mario on PC. I'm playing Mario on my PC, but it's through Nintendo services. So I feel like that's something that maybe they're losing out on, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder. Uh, Sega was slightly ahead of this time when it came to the Dreamcast. If you've
Mm-hmm.
watched any documentary out there, they've always very clearly state that Sega was way ahead of its time with that Dreamcast.
Oh yes,
And
absolutely.
had the Dreamcast came out a few years later when online connectability was more accessible to people, would the landscape of gaming today change or have changed? Would Xbox, would Microsoft have been a thing within the gaming community? Would it be Nintendo, Sega, and Sony fighting it out? Would Nintendo be alive? So these are questions to be asked if
Maybe, but
things had changed.
I just really don't think so. I really think Nintendo would have always still been there.
Hmm.
As long as Mario exists, as long as Zelda exists, as long as Pokemon exists, and some of their other most loved IPs, that's what sells Nintendo. It's not their console, it's not their hardware, it's not their third party games. Obviously, it is their bread and butter, their first party stuff.
Yeah.
As long as that stuff is beloved and sought after, Nintendo is never going to go away. And that cannot be said the same with the other systems.
You
Once
think
you started
about
seeing Sonic on other things, that was it.
Yeah. Think about like those three you mentioned, Mario, Zelda, Pokemon. Two of those three, I think damn near every person in the world has seen or heard a reference of. Zelda
Mhm.
sometimes it'd be questionable, but
Yeah.
Mario for sure and Pokemon.
Yep.
Everyone walking on the face of this planet probably has seen both of those at some point or heard both one of
Yep.
those in their time.
Yep. Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong, yeah. Think
You know,
about
like
uh, Sonic. Yeah, Sonic, we know Sonic, but I don't think everyone knows Sonic.
oh, and if they do, they may not know it exclusively from Sega. I
Yeah.
feel like Sonic is known for being Sonic and not necessarily known from Sega because Sonic, once it stopped being exclusive to Sega, Sonic became more mainstream, but Sega lost its IP. It lost its property. They could have continued being a huge deal in the gaming market console wise if they had held on to Sonic and didn't put out shit games. Because that's the other problem is the reason why Mario's got longevity, Zelda's got longevity. None of their games have been necessarily bad. Have there been some games where they weren't as good as the previous? Yeah, of course. But most of the time, you don't really hear people shitting on a Mario game, whether unless it's just not their thing. If they're not into Mario, then they're not going to play Mario, and that's understandable. But people who like Mario usually aren't going to say, "Oh well, I loved Mario 3, but I thought Mario World was garbage."
Yeah.
No, it's usually Mario 3 was fantastic. Mario World, is great too, and this and that, and it's just yeah. Nintendo has always put out quality first party stuff, and that's why their longevity lasted. Sonic could have been Sega's IP exclusive console thing forever, but then for a while there, and arguably still to this day, the joke is that when was the last time you played a good Sonic game? I think the most recent one has been relatively well liked, and a lot of these games kind of get like cult followings, but the overall population usually thinks that the game itself sucks.
Well,
And
I think
that's
Sonic is only relevant nowadays because of the movies.
that too. That probably helps Sonic, but to the point that there's probably a generation of people that are going to know Sonic for being movies and not video games.
Sad days
and
for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll ever have that with Mario. You know,
Oh yeah,
yes,
you'll never
they're
ever have
one,
that Mario.
their one animated movie that they just did, you know, was fantastic, but I don't think Mario's going to go down as being. People aren't going to know Mario only for those movies. They're going to know him from the games first.
No. And speaking of iconic characters, Mark, what's your favorite or favorites?
So I had a hard time thinking about this for a while because I wanted to say someone like Link from the Zelda series, but then I realized I love Zelda games, but I never played a Zelda game for Link. Hell, for the longest time, most people would say that the main character's name was Zelda. They would think that the Legend of Zelda was about Zelda. So for me, I have two. Cloud from Final Fantasy VII would be like my original go-to because Final Fantasy VII was my first real entry into the RPG genre, and Cloud was this kind of cool stoic character with this giant fucking sword where you're like, how the hell is this dude wielding it? Also, that's badass that he's wielding it. And the other one would be this one is a little bit, I wouldn't say controversial, but considering he didn't originate in the video games, he originated from books, would be Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah.
I knew him as a video game character first before I realized he was from a book series.
I think a lot of the world.
Yeah. And man, I feel bad because his name escapes me off the top of my head, but his iconic voice actor.
Doug Cockle.
Yeah. When I think of Geralt, I think of that voice. Like the live action show with
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill, he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
To the point that most of us real fans aren't going to watch when he's no longer involved, which would be the next season that comes out, season 4.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the actor. I don't think the actor looks that great as Geralt either, but I don't think he looks terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's a bad actor. I just think he's got the unfortunate role of being an actor, getting a part, replacing a beloved person.
They casted Henry Cavill because Henry Cavill is a gamer and is a deep nerd of the Witcher world. He's watched read the books, played the games. He is Geralt of Rivia in real life.
And then they fired him because of that same purpose. That same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that showed you, though, that Netflix was in it for the money and not for the fans. And that's why a lot of people like me aren't going to watch it. I didn't watch the 3rd season because I knew it was going to be his last. And everything that I heard from people who did watch it said that, yeah, the 3rd season's awful, that basically you could tell Henry was already kind of gone.
I'm so glad that he has more power when he's working on the Warhammer series. He's like a executive producer power or something like that, so they can't screw him over like they did with The Witcher.
I mean, that whole thing was shit, man, because didn't he lose Superman because he committed to Witcher?
Kinda. It's a mixture of a bunch of things, but like he was putting more time into Witcher, but WB was like, I don't know if we want to have you as Superman anymore because we want to go younger and different direction.
And I fucking hate that. And here's the thing. I've never been a fan of Superman, and I don't even think Henry Cavill's version of Superman was that great, but it made me like him a little more than any other version of Superman. And the
He's the
only
best
reason,
Superman since Christopher Reeves.
yeah, I agree. And here's the thing, though. I don't know if I'm going to be interested in the next Superman. The only thing that might bring me to it is James Gunn does have a very good track record. That might be enough to get me to give it a chance, but considering what they did to Henry Cavill, it's also enough to make me say, well, you kind of fucked over my boy Henry, so you maybe go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I don't like the more I'm hearing things like they're gonna have the super dog, whatever the hell it's called, inside the movie, the less
Crypto.
I'm interested
Why?
in.
Why do you need that shit? Like, come
Exactly.
on.
Like, was Man of Steel a great movie? Not so much. But was it good because of Henry Cavill? Absolutely.
Well, and here's
What?
the thing. I'll even go one further with you. I think Man of Steel was a great movie until the ending. I think
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
the director shot that last scene where he kills Zod
yeah.
is what killed that movie for me. Because anyone who was watching the movie could see that the family that was trapped could have just walked to the side and got out of the way, and that would have been it. But
Incoming
because
rant.
I'll be good. I'm going to be good. I'm just saying that was more of a directorial reason why I didn't why the film lost a step for me. But
Yeah.
I thought the overall film was great, and I think Henry Cavill is what made it great. Yes. So that's my only thing. I won't go on a rant this time around. I can't do a rant every episode because then they won't be special. So, but you get the point. Like,
Yeah.
yes, Henry Cavill made that film better, if not what made it a good film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, but let me because I went off topic real quick. So just getting back to the iconic character, that's Geralt has got a special place in my heart because of the type of character he is, and the voice does. The voice is a lot of it though. Like I hate to say, as much as I like Geralt, I think if the voice actor playing him wasn't that person, I don't know if I would have liked Geralt as much.
A couple of years ago, I can't remember the website, but you can go to this website and you can have celebrities record
Cameo?
something for you, and you pay
Cameo, probably.
Cameo. Yeah, yeah. So I was searching through there and I found that Doug Cockle's on there. $50. $50 to get him to, say a message. So I did that for my wife. I had him say a little speech for my wife for her birthday. And she was so happy to hear Doug do that. And I was just amazed that for only $50 compared to $300-400 that some of these other people are offering
Mm-hmm.
or asking for, he is a man of the fans. And he knows that
Yeah.
without Geralt of Rivia, he wouldn't exist as a voice actor. And that's how so many fans know him of.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like some of those Cameo is a great site, but it's definitely a shell of its former self of when it first came out. Because a lot of the times, like you said, people will put a price tag on their voice, and sometimes it's way over what anyone should be paying. And a lot of times it's a dialed in, phoned in message of like, hi, I'm blah blah blah, hi person that I'm being contractually obligated to say hi to, blah blah blah. But then there's some people who you pay your money down and they'll go above and beyond.
You got
Because
YouTubers who are
fandom.
asking like $300-400 for a 30-second clip. YouTubers.
Yeah. It's nuts. It's crazy. I mean, I wish a lot of voice actors would do this. I was looking for a voice actor to do a line for a friend for her birthday, but unfortunately he doesn't do Cameo or anything like that, and I don't have enough internet stroke to reach out through certain channels to maybe get in contact with him to be like, hey, look, I will pay whatever you want to pay, whatever you want. It's just my friend really, really loves your character. It would mean a lot to them to like just do like a hey, happy birthday person.
Mhm.
And I wish more actors and voice actors did do that, but at the same time, I respect why they don't do it. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell in some of those senses. Not everyone. People who don't do it doesn't mean they don't love their fans. I'm definitely not saying that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, just that you could definitely tell the people who use that service or are on that service which ones really care about their fandom and which ones are just in it for that extra paycheck.
Listen, I'm gonna throw this out there. Anyone who's watching this channel and has connections to Matt Mercer and can get me in touch with him to have a little spiel with my wife, that'd be her birthday present.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
He's not on Cameo. I've looked, but that would make her day.
Well, define what you mean by spiel. Like talk to her for
You
a
know,
few
a
minutes.
30-second little video like you can do on Cameo. That's what I'm talking about.
I'll get back to you on that.
So in terms of my favorite iconic characters, I wasn't into
Mm-hmm.
Geralt, but I saw you had it on the list, so I was like, well, and Geralt is a big thing for me because Geralt honestly was one of the building blocks of how I begun my relationship with my wife. I started as friends, of course, but I was playing The Witcher 3, and I would come to work every day and share the story that I'm in within The Witcher and talking about Geralt, and she was just blown away by how cool the world is, because she wasn't playing the game at the time, didn't have access to play it.
Mm-hmm.
So Geralt will definitely always have a part in my heart as the main characters, but I didn't choose him for the reason you posted him. I did choose two, and I just realized they're actually both Sony characters, which is ironic because we're talking about the future of gaming consoles, and here
Oh
we are,
yeah,
it's two Sony characters.
I just saw that. Yeah, I just saw that.
But so the two I picked is Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series, and the reason I picked him is because he's like a mixture to me. He's like a mixture of Indiana Jones and Lara Croft, kind of
Which
into
was how
one
he was
character.
built. I think that's how he was created too.
Yeah, and it's a great way to do it. He's cocky, arrogant, but he has a lot of heart. And if you played any of the games, you sense that heart. You hear him talk. And his relationship he has with Sully, and his relationship he has with his other friends within the series is just phenomenal. And the way they ended the fourth one, I'm not gonna do any spoilers, but it really hurt my heart a little bit. It was a nice ending, potentially, to that series if that's going to be the case. And
Yeah.
the same is said with Kratos. People think about Kratos in God of War 1, 2, and 3, and then the other spin-offs for the PSP, but they think of him as this brute barbarian with no backstory. But he has a hell of a terrible, tragic backstory, killing his own wife and child and wearing the ashes of them on his body. And that's where we see Kratos today. And then you look at the recent God of War and God of War Ragnarok, where now you see an older, wiser, mature Kratos trying to carry on life with a spouse that passed away, a new spouse that passed away, and now trying to raise the child that we're trying to figure out what he is and how chaotic he is. So yeah, the story of Kratos is very deep, and I don't think a lot of people, especially those not in the gaming world, realize how realistic these characters and how deep these characters are in today's games.
It's funny that you say that, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It it beckons me back to my childhood, and the Transformers franchise. I know I've probably mentioned this before.
Transformers.
Where
Never heard of it.
Well, Hasbro thought of Transformers was just a toy line to them.
Mhm.
So, and what did you do when you put out a new toy and the old toys were discontinued? Well, you wrote them off the show, or in the '86 movie, they killed off a bunch of characters, including Optimus Prime, who, as you know, Optimus Prime means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So it kind of the reason why it harkens me back to that is that I think a lot of society doesn't, when they think of a cartoon character, anime is a good example. Anime characters, video game characters, they're just characters. They don't have anything behind them. They don't realize that there are people like us out there who have connections with these characters, and that these characters mean something to somebody because they're a fleshed out character, that they're almost like a real person to us because of how their story is told, how we relate to that character.
We connect
It,
to them because of something in our life. In some form or fashion, we
yes,
connect to them because of that. They help us
and
through
people,
tragedy.
yeah, and I think people only really link that to a TV show or a movie, and of the live action variety. And a lot of people don't sit down and think that that can happen with a cartoon character, a video game character,
Well,
etc. And
think of Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles was a comic when
mhm.
it first came out, and I'm not trying to spoil it myself, so don't spoil it either for me if you know. But I know they're working on the Last Ronin video game, and I think they're also working on an animated
I think there's a TV
movie
series
or
for it.
series on it as well. And
If they follow the comics, I'm not spoiling anything, but it's going to be a damn good tale, but it's going to be a damn tragic tale too.
well, that's
So
what my point is. The little bit I do know about it, and again, don't spoil any further. But
I won't say anything else.
it's it's Raphael by himself. His brothers are gone.
Yeah.
And that's tragic. 'Cause if you've watched, read, played any of the Ninja Turtles, they are together, bounded brothers.
Hmm.
Like think about the movie that came out in the 90s, like the OG Ninja Turtle movie, the live action one. Like that really shows you when they bonded together to go get Splinter. When Raph, when he was in a coma, or
Hurt.
whatever, and the brothers
Yep. When he
were
was hurt.
nurturing him. Yeah, like
Hmm.
that is bonding. That is a family as a whole. And to your three brothers are dead, your father's dead, and now you have this burden on your shoulders. Like, holy crap. So I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm gonna probably cry during it, but I'm looking really forward to that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the new comic book that Transformers is doing tells a very different tale with a lot of mortality, a lot of death for a lot of iconic characters, and they tell Optimus Prime in a very realistic way, which portrays him as very much the Optimus Prime that I grew up with, the one that is noble and knows when to be gentle, but also someone who has been a part of a war, who there's a separate side of him who changes when in battle and knows when to be serious and when to fight. So, and then there's a lot of iterations like the live action versions where he's just an action hero who beats up the bad guys type thing. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different media for a lot of different characters, and the way the story gets told can mean a lot to a lot of different people, and it's a shame that more people don't realize that comic book characters, cartoon characters, anime characters, video game characters, these beings, these creations can have just as much meaning as your weekly sitcom or your weekly drama show or your big movie titles that you go see in theater. Like, it's a shame that more people don't understand that.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm getting close to the end of the new Dragon Age game. Have maybe an hour left of it, maybe. And they had a hell of a twist at the end. And I'm not spoiling anything for anyone, but yeah, I got emotional. I was shocked. I was blown away of how things are unraveling. And it's gonna sadden quite a few people who've played the series of it to see what happens.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, the newest Final Fantasy VII game, because Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, and now the new one, Rebirth, which I'm waiting for it to come out on PC before I play it, if I play it. They had a chance to redo. What's the statute of limitation on something? Like, if I spoil something from 20 years ago, it should be fine, right?
Oh, I'm sure it's fine.
Anyone who knows Final Fantasy VII knows that Aerith dies. And it was a big deal to me when I was playing the games originally back on the PlayStation 1, because she was built as a healer. She was obviously my healer. They killed her character off, and I struggled for a long time to find a character to fill the healer role, because no one quite had the abilities that Aerith did. And one of the big things that I hoped for when they did the remakes was like, this is their chance to undo it. Now, I'm not going to say what happens, but they go an interesting route. And I know this because I've seen the game. I've seen pretty much the story because I'm not the kind of person that can wait to know what happens. But spoilers have never been a big deal to me. Like, I'm one of those people that you could spoil a movie for me and I'm still going to go sit in that movie theater and see that film and enjoy the film just as much as if I didn't know anything, if it's something I care about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I ask you to spoil something for me so that I don't have to go see it, that's different. But for example, I'm just using Final Fantasy VII here. The fact that I know what happens doesn't mean I'm going to play the game less.
Yeah.
If anything, there's so many things in that game that makes me still want to play it a lot. So that's just an example. So yeah, man, I don't know where to go from. You take it, Joe. I got lost there thinking about it.
Hey, it just shows you how emotional you can get
Oh yeah,
with some of these characters, and
yeah,
how
definitely.
emotional we can get with boss fights. Because love them or hate them, every game has them. Going back to the OG Mario games to the new age Soul-like games. Now, here's the question though. Do we want a hard boss battle, or we want one that's more entertaining?
And I think a lot of times with these topics, I think it's always a matter of perspective. A lot of people play games because they want to be challenged, and I think that's great. For me, I play a game, especially for me, I was a big role-playing game player, and my whole thing was getting a story.
Mm-hmm.
So, and seeing that story conclude. So for me, I would choose entertaining.
Yeah.
But I know tons of people who want that satisfying thrill of fighting that boss and maybe dying to him over and over again, and then finally getting that win and feeling accomplished. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
For me personally, I go for entertaining.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like something that really drives me to want to play, to unfold more of the story. And when there are challenging bosses, not soul bosses, but just challenging bosses, that's a perfect realm for me, because not only are you getting that story, but you're also having to work hard to make sure you complete that story, not just hacking away at the X button or the mouse click button to
Yes.
make the win. You actually have to use a strategy to defeat that character.
That was a big thing with the newest Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 16. They changed the game into more of an action-based game, and it wasn't so big of a deal when you were just doing the open world stuff, but when you were fighting a boss fight, I found that I was basically grinding the buttons. Like, just there was a lot of like button mashing, kind of my hands were getting tired. I already have like carpet tunnel type problems with my hands and arthritis in my hands, that like my hands started to get tired doing the same actions over and over again, and that actually killed that game for me. So yeah, like I understand. Like, I would love to sit down one day with like a true Souls fan and ask them and pick their brain of why they love Souls games so much, because people who love Souls games love Souls games, and the concept of it, I understand. Fighting something that's incredibly hard, dying to it over and over again, and then finally getting that win. There's got to be an adrenaline rush like no other when you do that. But there are so many times in those games, because I've tried playing them. I've tried playing Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. I tried playing Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring is probably the furthest I've gotten in a Souls-like game, and I actually still want to revisit that game down the road eventually. But the Souls games, you make one little mistake, even just fighting like grunts, and you're dead. And maybe at first it's like, oh, tee-hee, but after a while it's like
rage quit.
It's like, yeah, it's like I can't do this because like
I'm not playing this to have fun anymore.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they're insulting our time, because people who have the time and who want to play these games are going to play these games. But an average gamer or people who are busy like you, Joe, like me, we don't have a lot of free time sometimes, and playing those kind of games where we're just killing grunts to get to maybe the next boss for hours on end just doesn't do it for me.
Well, I think with like, for example, God of War, the last God, not the last one, but the one that came out in what 2018, they did it really well because the boss battles were challenging but not difficult. If you wanted difficulty, they have the Valkyries you can go after, and those are like soul-like
Hmm.
creatures, bosses. So you have the best of both worlds, something you can enjoy the story with. But if you want that challenging part, you can do these side things and get and unlock the loot there.
Yeah, I think Witcher 3 and even the newest iterations of the Final Fantasy VII series, the remake game, I remember there were specific um, summons. I forget what they call the summons in Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if they're eidolons or whatever, but you could go and fight Ifrit and get his materia to summon him. But then you could do like a challenge mode version if you wanted a harder fight or if you wanted something super difficult. So they gave you something that, and if you did it, you would get like a relatively decently cool reward, not something game breaking or must have.
Hmm.
So maybe that's why people maybe were less inclined to do it. But achievement hunters would do it. People who collectors would do it, and people who wanted challenges could do it. The same thing with Geralt uh, and Witcher 3. I
Yeah.
believe there were contracts that you could take out for harder, you know, things to fight. So I
Yeah.
think having the option is fantastic.
Hmm.
The same thing with having multiple difficulties of a game, having super hard or challenge modes and this and that, like is great. But having it be your be all, the end all, it's so much.
I would definitely play the Soul games if they had difficulty options in there. Because I think the world looks cool. I think it looks like it'd be up in my alley of interest, but I just don't have any of the patience to even try to actually be good at those kind of games.
Yeah, I've tried. I notoriously, my last stream when I was streaming for a while, my last stream I believe was a Dark Souls game, and your cousin, I can't remember what he is to you. Is he your
Yeah,
is
cousin.
your cousin? You know, didn't do it in a mean way, but just said something that after fighting this boss for a while, I got pissed enough that I just ended. I rage quitted, and I never went back to that game. And I technically haven't really streamed much since either. So he ended my streaming career.
You could have been a big YouTuber today instead of making a podcast for 5 people to listen to.
I know, right? God damn it! No,
Did you
but
add the
no,
quick times on here, or did I add that?
I added it because I hate them. I hate them with a passion. There's nothing I hate more than playing a game and being invested in the game. And then sometimes I'll even get as far as sometimes I'll be playing a game and I'm invested in the cutscene and the story, and I'll put the controller down because I'm
Yeah,
watching the story, and
yeah.
then it's be like, hit this button real quick, and I'm like, what? No, fuck you.
I think every game should require, or sorry, not require, have the option to to change the way quick times react. The Tomb Raider series, the newest ones, you have the option
Oh God,
to change it to where
yeah.
it's just a single button versus button smashing or combo
Hmm.
button. And I think that's brilliant because yeah, you can just hit a B button really quick, no problem.
I think
Um,
you should have the option to turn them off
yeah.
as well if you don't want the quick time event.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that should be an option. I mean, I people who like them, more power to you. I'm sure there's plenty of people who want the interactivity
Yeah.
of a quick time event. I'm not one of them. I
Listen,
I want to I want to chill.
a game in today's time isn't just about the actual gaming experience in general, controlling the character. It's also about exploring the world and being engulfed it into the story itself, I feel. So
Exactly. And if you're in
maybe,
the middle of a cutscene and then you're interrupted in that cutscene by, oh, by the way, you should probably press this real quick or something will happen.
yeah,
Not a fan.
no, no. And multi phases, what was that one all about?
So oddly enough, I'm going to use the new Final Fantasy game again as an example. Mild spoiler if you don't want to know about the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because when the game came out, they put the ending out on YouTube.
Oh,
Yeah, I forgot who put it out, but it was either IGN or one of those companies that they probably would have had permission to do, because imagine if you put out the ending of a big game out on YouTube without permission. I'm imagining Sony would have tore their ass apart.
yeah, yeah.
So I, being the curious little beaver that I am, I
Oh boy.
watched the ending. I won't say who you fight,
Yeah.
even though anyone who knows the series knows who you fight. That was, I think I counted 12 phases.
Holy cow.
The fight was like an hour and something and change, multiple phases, multiple characters being changed in and out. When the fuck is enough enough?
Yeah.
JRPG bosses are notorious for, you fight the final boss and he always has a phase 2 transformation, sometimes a phase 3.
Yeah.
That's a stereotype of JRPG people, as someone who plays JRPGs can tell you. Your MMOs, you play an MMO like World of Warcraft. There's very rarely is it just a simple, you fight boss die. Usually it's you fight boss, he gets to 35-50%, he changes to another mode, or he adds new abilities or whatever. So
Think about this, as you're telling me these phases, think about the old Mario games, because you'd have typically you'd have to jump on the head of the enemy 3 times.
Yep.
And the first time they're their main character. The second time they transform into a little extra more powerful. You have to jump on them again, or they're a little faster. And then you do it again the third time. So the phases have been there from the beginning, but I think the phases now are just drawn out so much longer.
Yeah.
Compared to a single just one hit.
I think that's the case. But yeah, oh man, obviously I'm not gonna pull any audio up or anything, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth ending fight. Let me see if I can just find the video real fast, just to see. Okay, probably not. So, and I'm not going to take a fuck ton of time, obviously, but I'm just curious if I could see a real quick thing. But it was, like I said, I swear, I don't think I was over exaggerating. I swear it was probably like 12 phases of being like, oh, your main party fights, and then it's just one-on-one, and then it's like, oh, something happens and now it's this other party. Oh, and now something happens and it's the main character and someone else. I got the audio muted, right? Yeah. Let's see. Just scrolling through here real quick. This is an hour video, and I'm seeing there's one phase there. There's phase 2 there where someone else comes in. Phase 3, there's just him, the Cloud fighting. Phase 4 is another party. Phase 5 is another party. You get the point. Well,
Yeah.
basically, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but the fact of the matter is that when you're 5, 6, 8 phases in, at some point you're just like, I don't give a shit anymore.
There's I bring up Dragon Age because I've been playing the newest one a lot more recently, but there's a side mission in there. I think it's a side mission, like a side boss that you fight. But what I thought was unique about it in terms of like the multi-phase thing is that he'll go to, I don't remember what it is, like a throne or something, and he regenerates some of his health. And you have to go up in there and beat him a little bit so that he's out of his little bubble, and then you can go after him again. So he builds up a little bit more health. So that in that kind of way, it's kind of like a phase, but it makes sense because he's, surrounded and engulfed in this bubble trying to recover his health. And if you're not there fast enough or do enough damage, he's going to get full health again. So you have to learn new strategy to win.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, it feels a good way to do it.
And yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: like, I'm not against multi-phase fights, but like you said, it's the drawn out part of it. But Rebirth is just maybe an exception to the rule here of it. Like this is a little too much. Like, I'll be honest, I don't think even when it comes out, I don't think I'll beat Rebirth. I'll be completely honest.
Really?
I probably will stop playing it once I get to the last boss. Because of that reason. Because you're already emotionally invested in the story of the game. Yeah, but like nothing takes me out of the story when you like have that sigh of relief when you beat the boss, only be like, oh yeah, he's beaten, and then just kidding, here I am again, here's another fight. It's like that it kind of takes me out of it. And then if you do that 8 to 10 times,
Yeah.
no, let's not do that. Let's not. So yeah, I think it depends on how it's done. There are a lot of games that do it really well. And I would argue, going back to the Souls games, that if maybe the overall game wasn't as punishing and just the boss fights were the punishing ones, I think I would enjoy them a little bit better, because the satisfaction of beating the boss is different than having the satisfaction of like these mobs, these NPCs keep kicking my ass and I finally beat them. Oh wait, I still have to go fight the boss? What? You know, like
that's how I would.
it's a little.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would feel with it all as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really depends on the type of fight, but a lot of games do it really well, and then there's some games that take it to the extremes.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else to add to this episode, Mark?
No, just I want to thank everybody who takes the time to listen to the podcast. If it's just one of you, if it's two of you, if there's 20 of you, however many there are, we appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. It's been fun, and we have many more episodes planned here. Some really cool, in-depth. I guess I don't know, it's so weird because as a gaming podcast, the idea has been to try to find something that's more unique in the world, because there are millions of these podcasts out there, and so we're trying to cater to everyone we possibly can. And so we have some really cool, interesting ideas coming up for the main stories on these future episodes.
Oh yeah, I mean, and some individual breakdowns of maybe IPs, specifically franchises that we like. Like I've mentioned, I think in almost every podcast, being a fan of Transformers. There's eventually I want to take the show and do an episode on Transformers. I know Joe, being big into Diablo and big into Flight Sim, there's going to be times where maybe he wants to do a show on that topic, and me not being in it, it's going to be an interesting take of being someone who's not a fan of said item, being on the outside looking in. I might have like interesting perspectives.
Yeah.
And I'll also learn something.
Absolutely. And we do have plans on bringing on some guests at some point during the show. So like Mark said, thanks for everyone for listening and watching. We do appreciate it as always, and we will see you for number 4 coming up soon.
Bye.
Bye.